There was a time in Maine's history where our prosperity was defined by our coastline. And it wasn't just about the coastal resources that we harvested or depended upon. It had a lot to do with the trade and the nations in the North Atlantic that we traded with. Here we are 150 years later with the same opportunity to revitalize those connections to these countries that are in our backyard. And we're working with the University of Southern Maine to help that exchange, help grow those connections with Norway, with Sweden, with Finland, with Denmark, with Germany and the United Kingdom and Iceland and Greenland. And we have nothing but opportunities to grow working with them.
On the first day of our capstone, Professor Heiser told the class that any group that could create a project tying the University of Southern Maine's capstone to Iceland would be in the running to win a trip to Iceland, funded by the university. Iceland has had a dwindling cod population for over 2 decades, and they came up with a creative solution to reuse the different parts of the cod and turn all of these byproducts into revenue streams. Maine has an enormous fishery. It seemed like an untapped resource for us. My group and I studied lobster dehydration and what that could possibly mean for Maine if we learn to really hone in on that process and extract the different chemicals and resources from lobster shell that we aren't currently using, turning waste into revenue.
During my 6 weeks in Iceland, I researched secondhand health effects of electronic cigarettes. In Iceland, as well as all around the world, there has been this boom of electronic cigarette use, and there's a whole number of problems associated with electronic cigarettes around youth, around indoor use. There's no consistency with the actual e-liquid that's being sold. And I presented my research at the University of Iceland the last day I was there. After that presentation, I had 2 faculty from the university approach me and ask me to get that work published, which is what I'm currently working on.
For tourism and hospitality students, it's especially important, I think, that they get out and travel and experience the world. Iceland is a place where literally within the last 6 to 8 years, tourism has exploded. All of a sudden, they're dealing with 10 times the amount of people coming to the island compared to their local population. And so they're now working through how do we manage all of that? How do we train tourists? How do we protect the places that are really special? And so for our students, they get to take a look at a place that is really in the infancy of its tourism management. So there's a lot that we can learn from Iceland. They have a really strong tourism research program that's through the University of Iceland. And they look at things like sustainability issues using cutting-edge GIS and geographic technologies. And they measure visitor perception of wilderness depending on where people are taking pictures and posting it on social media. Now they're looking at how do we make a more educated tourist, so when they come here, they know how to protect the landscape without them having to necessarily rope everything off, put up tons of signs, and kind of ruin that natural feel. There's a lot of things that we might be able to take as pointers as we start addressing those issues too.
I think study abroad is really important for students because it gives them an opportunity to step out of their comfort zone, to see a new area of the world, and to experience diversity in a hands-on way as opposed to in the classroom. We have a $500,000 gift from an alumnus who is eager to support international exchanges. And what we're using that money for is to fund short-term travel for honor students. We're going to be able to fund their flight, their lodging, their meals. All the student has to pay for is to register for the course. That's a really exciting opportunity.
Continuing one's education broadens the mind, but traveling abroad broadens the spirit, broadens the perspective for how to apply the things we learn to life. It really opens up new opportunities for every individual when you're traveling abroad to experience things differently and change yourself. And that allows you to capitalize on your education with far greater effect. than just going to school alone.